Hey there, beautiful goblins. This is the Goblin King. It's Wednesday, the beginning of my work week, and I've got another movie review for you. After last week's review, I decided that I'm going to do one or two other John Hughes films. Hell, I'm still considering whether or not I'm going to do the entirety of the Brat Pack library. Let me know your thoughts down below on that one. It's actually a little annoying right now trying to come up with movie reviews, since all my movies are currently at my new place while I'm still at my old one. Long story. Anywho, what's the movie that I finally landed on after much, or no, soul searching? Well, if I told you that, I'd have to kill you. Wait, that seems a little harsh. Especially since I need to tell you what it is if I'm going to review the damned thing. So I guess I'll tell you, without killing you. This week's pick was another John Hughes film. Duh. The Breakfast Club. That duh was for me, not for you beautiful people who have decided to devote several minutes of your time to my insane ramblings. Now, I do believe, just based on circumstantial evidence, that The Breakfast Club is the most popular one of John Hughes' library. Maybe Home Alone. Though, definitely the most popular one of the Brat Pack films for sure. So, for those of you who, I can only surmise, have been in some sort of catatonic state for the last 30-odd years, I'll break the film down for you. The Breakfast Club is about a group of teens who all get Saturday detention. Superficially, they all fall into a specific stereotypical high school clique, at least for the 80s. You have the nerd, the jock, the queen bee, the weirdo, and the troublemaker. Those are mostly my terms that I'm using there. The film uses nerd, jock, princess, basket case, and criminal. The detention is ruled over by a no-nonsense principal or vice principal. Not sure which. I don't think the film was clear on his exact post, and I just watched the thing, so yeah. Now, he's mostly made out to be a dickhead and a hard-ass, especially at one specific point in the film where he's taunting a student. He was genuinely a piece of shit there. Though there are points where there is a bit of pathos with his character. A few points. But not much. He's generally a dickhead. A dickhead in a leisure suit. Anyway, over the course of the detention, these 5 kids get to know each other a little more. They get to know each other's personalities, foibles, home lives, and their own individual reasons for being stuck at school on a Saturday. As they learn about each other, they learn that none of them fit neatly into these labels they've been shoehorned into, and that they all have their own issues and take a bit from each of the roles they seem to fill. Pretty sure I could have said that better, but I can't think of a better sentence currently, so I'll just leave it that way, I guess. Regardless, that's it. That's really the whole of the film in a nutshell. 5 superficially very different kids learn about each other and learn that they're not so different. The end. As I've stated multiple times so far, this film is a John Hughes film. This is one of those ones that was actually directed and written by the man, so it's got his distinct flavor all over it. And that just sounds naughty. I really feel like John Hughes was a master at getting down into the nitty-gritty of what it meant to be a young person, especially in the 80s. Not sure how he managed to pull that off, to be honest, but he did manage it. I mean, it's possible that's because the 80s really weren't that different from the previous couple of decades as far as social structures of high school went. It wasn't that different in the 90s either, to be honest. I really don't feel like things really started getting different until more recent decades. I don't even want to think what it may be like going to high school in this day and age. It makes me shudder to think about, and I was a nerdy kid in school, with all that goes with that. I'd still rather go to school back then than go to school nowadays. At any rate, John Hughes managed to really distill that sort of youthful angst down in these movies, especially this one, which is why I think this one remains the most popular amongst this particular group of films. He gets past that spoiled-ass kid's rhetoric and really digs deep into what young people think, fear, hope for, all that. He peels back that veneer that adults like to put onto the idea of being young and not having any real problems, and show them a sometimes ugly truth. At least that's definitely part of what I've always loved about this film. Like it was telling me that it's okay to worry about shit even when you're young. Your problems may not seem like much in the grand scheme of things, but they're yours, you know? So let's delve a bit into the individual characters then, shall we? Firstly, we have the nerd, played by Anthony Michael Hall. I mentioned in the last film that guy was in this one, and that he played basically the same character. Well, after watching them back to back pretty much the way I have now, I can say that I was both right and wrong about that. The nerd, whose name is Brian, is very much, on the surface, very similar to the character that Anthony Michael Hall played in Weird Science. The reason for this is relatively simple. His character in Weird Science was very much a surface-level geek. There was actually very little depth to Gary in Weird Science, whereas there was a lot more depth to the character of Brian, despite the fact that there wasn't much depth to Anthony Michael Hall's acting in this one. Take a look, or another look, at the point where he's crying and you'll see what I mean. Next, we have the jock, played by a very young Emilio Estovez. For those not in the know, a little factoid. Emilio is the older brother of Charlie Sheen and the son of Martin Sheen. I actually just found out he was older than Charlie, and that came as a bit of a shock to me. I've always thought he was younger than Charlie. Weird. Anyway, Emilio was very much perfect for this role, physically, especially back then. The man actually seemed to embody that jock stereotype, though his acting was actually much better than Anthony Michael Hall's. Since he comes from a family of actors, I suppose that could explain that. The jock's real name is Andrew, and very much through Emilio's performance, is one of the characters that really has the most depth to me. People can say it's Bender due to his backstory, but he stays pretty consistent throughout the film. While Andy is one of the three characters who shows the most growth in the movie, at least in my opinion. Then you have the princess, or Queen Bee as I tagged her, played by Molly Ringwald. Ringwald was big in the 80s due to these John Hughes films mainly. Her character also was pretty basic. You did learn that she had some depth through the film. She both did and didn't grow. By the end of the film, she started seeing the other characters in a different light, but she's still Claire, which is her name in the film, by the way. The weirdo or basket case was played by Ali Sheedy. When I was younger, she was always my favorite character. I honestly thought she was prettier than Molly Ringwald. There's still a part of me that feels that way to this day. I mean, I identified the most with the nerdy kid, obviously, but Allison was the one I thought was the coolest. She is one of the three I mentioned who has the most growth in the film as a character. She starts to come out of her shell a lot more and open up to the other kids. Some of her growth is a little superficial, a little she's all that in a way, but there's still more than that. Finally, you have the troublemaker or the criminal, played by Judd Nelson. Like I said, he was one of those who had the least amount of development, to me. Sure, he starts being a bit nicer, but he never really moves beyond that stereotypical bad boy. A lot of people, I think, again, look at his backstory and think, whoa, that character's got some depth, he's not just some two-bit thug. However, troubled home life is the same backstory for every two-bit thug in film. His family sucks, so he lashes out at the world. I get that there are real-life people like that, and it's sad, and I empathize with anyone going through that, honestly. But when it comes to storytelling, it's a trope. A trope that John Bender never really moves beyond. At least not that we see. With the ending of the film, it could move in a different direction, but we, as the audience, will never see that. So it is what it is. I'll be honest though, I think that the coolest character in this entire film is the janitor, Carl. That dude is wise as fuck, and he isn't afraid to talk to the kids like adults, or the adults like their children either. Or give them shit when they give him shit. I like him a lot. To me, he's the unsung hero of this tale. Wow, I think I managed to go through both the strengths and problems of this film just in those few paragraphs. I didn't have to come right out and address everything one by one. I basically covered every character that appears on screen. I talked about everything, hopefully, without giving anything away. I might be getting better at this. Maybe. So anyway, that's all I have for you on this one, Goblins. This film is always a recommend from me. If you haven't seen it, it's a damn fine film and it's a damn time to go out and watch it. Otherwise, tell me what you thought in that handy comment section down below, if available. While you're down there, don't forget to join the Viridian Horde by crushing those shiny buttons. I'll see you all tomorrow for an anime review and another pop culture joke. See you then. Lates.